Hello, today I wanted to talk about the interlaced video made in progressive scan. I often record 5th generation video games such as Sega Saturn, PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64 on BizHawk, and a number of them use interlacing to a certain degree. And just to show you an example here, interlacing is those vertical lines you see appear during movement. It's not very common, but there are a few notable examples, such as Tobal, Virtua Fighter 2, Bloody Roar, and a number of console ports of point-and-click games made in Cryo Engine, or however it is they call it. For the longest time, I just assumed that there isn't anything that you can do to make this look any better, until the developers behind BizHawk add an option for proper deinterlacing. However, by the power of obsessive compulsion and staying up until 5 a.m., I figured out a decent way to get rid of or minimize these interlace artifacting that you get in progressive footage. Now, first things first, you need to make sure that you get a good interlaced footage in progressive scan, because not everything is usable. Most important thing is, I'm going to just use the PlayStation as the example. I'm using, if I recall correctly, Octoshock, but should be similar options in other ones as well. You need to make sure that the interlacing is set to weave. Neither one of those really give us anything to work with otherwise. And when it comes to the resolution, there's only really two options that you can use. For games that vary a lot in terms of aspect ratio, you want to use this one, because it will ensure that you always get the same aspect ratio, provided that you actually filled in the resolution. However, it can actually distort the footage if the resolution mismatch is too harsh, especially considering that the emulator, as far as I know, does not offer any scale filtering options. If you want to make sure that you always get the best possible quality, you want to use the Pixel Pro mode. However, that can cause a lot of variability in the width of the video that you get. So, assuming you have that set up, you also need to make sure that you are recording the video in the correct resolution. So you need to make sure to go to resize, and in this case, well, actually, in this case, I want to set this resolution. You do want to take a look at the rest of the video to make sure that nothing is wider or way too thin, but this is actually the highest resolution throughout the whole video, because the pre-rendered cutscenes use a progressive resolution that's much lower than this. And I have already recorded this before, so I know this is gonna turn out fine. Not gonna do it right now, but this is something to keep in mind. The resolution for PAL games needs to be 576 in height, and this number is not as important. And for, well, it just should be whatever this is, or in Pixel Pro mode, it's just going to be 800. And for NTSC games, so American and Japanese releases, you need to make sure that this number says 480. Otherwise, the interlacing, again, is not going to work with the footage that you have created. Now, I already have made the footage, so I'm going to go onto Vegas, and I'm going to drop a clip as an example. So here we have this video, and as you can see, since I haven't done anything with it, the interlace artifacting is still very much present in it. Yeah, hopefully you can see that. What we need to do in order to prepare this is we need to go first into clip properties, to media. We need to find the option field order, set it to upper field first, said OK. This action needs to be repeated for every single clip, sadly. I have not found a way to enable this for every single clip, just by marking them and selecting everything to upper field first. Another good alternative is actually to merge all of the clips that you have while they're still in progressive scan, just render them all together into one video, and then in one go into properties and change it to upper field first. Now we want to go to properties, and we want to make sure that the deinterlacing method is nothing. We don't want that. And we want to also make sure that the resolution is the same as the clip. It should be if your VGIS is set to match the project settings to the video. We want to change the field order to upper field first, and here's the very important part. We want to make sure that the frame rate is 25. You may be wondering, why would I want to do that if I know that the game is, for example, running at 50 frames, or in case of American games, 60 frames? Well, interlaced video shows essentially 2 frames inside of 1 frame. So we're just bringing it back to the way that it is most legible for other software. So now that I have everything set up like this, I want to go into render settings. And I already have a preset for this, which essentially I just want to match everything I've done in the project. So, well, use project settings. It just makes it easier. Frame rate needs to be the same. So in this case 25, and field order still needs to be upper field first. And when it comes to video format, I prefer to use a Lagarith lossless codec in order to make sure that I don't lose quality. You don't really want to use uncompressed. I don't see if that, yeah, it is an option, but you don't want to use it because it will make horrendously large video files. Now that we have all that set up, imagine I pressed rendered and I made this video, except that I won't because I already prepared some other ones before. We want to open a Virtual Dub. Now with Virtual Dub, I will quickly search for a good example. Let's say I have it here. So I dropped the file into Virtual Dub, and yeah, I mean it's still going to be it's hard to see anything in this game really, but just try. Yeah, it is still interlaced. And what we want to do is we want to go into video filters, add. I want to scroll down just a little bit and look for Deinterlace. Now, there's a number of options, but the only one that really matters is the ADIF, because it's better than everything else. And in field order, we want to use this option, double the frame rate, top field first. Top field first is just a different way of saying upper field first. So now this has been added, and if I'm going to look for like a moment where I move the camera, and I'm going to try and move it frame by frame. I said a moment where I move the camera. Okay, this should do. Maybe I'll go with that backwards. So you can see on the right side, the video no longer features any of these lines that you can see on the video on the left side. The left side video is without filters applied. And as you can see, it is also 50 frames, because every time I click, it should move by 1 frame. On the left side, it doesn't because it's 25 frames, and on the right side, it is 50 frames. Neat, ain't it? Now, when you are satisfied with your results, you want to save the video. Make sure that this doesn't say it's uncompressed. Select Lagarith. I just used the default settings and I was never disappointed. And then you save it, except that I already have this. Now I'm going to run through. Now there's another way that you can actually deinterlace videos, also using a virtual dub. Let me reopen. Actually, I'm just going to close this and open a fresh virtual dub for ease. And that option is called QTGMC. It is essentially an AV synth script. I'm going to open it here. I'm not going to show how to install this because other people have done it already and they've done an excellent job with this. But essentially what you can do is take this as basis once it's already installed and everything. In this section, you gotta fill in the name of the file. So I'm going to take the one that I have just used. Make sure that this one says assume TFF, which stands for top field first or upper field first. Convert to UV12 because this is a requirement for this to function. And QTGMC preset slower. There is some other options that can be messed around with, and I haven't quite messed around it quite as much. Oh, my bad. With this option, you can actually test whether or not your script is working correctly. Now, QTGMC has some advantages, but they mostly lie in working with DV or DVD footage, like, you know, old cameras, videos from like house recording and stuff like that. It can be used for games as well. However, it does tend to soften the image quite a bit more compared to YADIF, which gives a much sharper image. But let's just say we're done with this. Then we save this script. And then I have this script and I can drop it in VirtuaDub. And it will carry over these same settings. But as I said before, QTGMC does have a few disadvantages when it comes to working with game footage, or at the very least with Dracula 2, as it causes the vertical lines that this game uses for the purposes of dithering to wobble left and right, and it does it in a very inconsistent fashion, making the image overall just unpleasant to look at, besides the fact that this game already looks pretty unpleasant. But yeah, it's just very inconsistent image that would not be very pleasant to look at. So I don't really use it for this game, but it is something that could be used. There's also another script I have tested with this game and even this clip, and which is to telecide. Telecide essentially means to put back a field order together the way that it was meant to be viewed in progressive scan. Let me just open this. It happens to be the exact same video. It does give a lot more stable image in general. it is free of the wobble. However, it is limited to 25 FPS as far as I can tell. I could check this right now. Yes, it is limited to 25 or 30 FPS, and I also noticed that the frame rate is somewhat inconsistent. Sometimes it drops a frame. At other times it seems that it moves a little bit further than it should. But again, it is an option for 25 frames or 30 frames footage. Now, I have already put together a certain comparison for the various methods I talked about in this video. First of all, let's take a look at Weave for the lulz. Now, this is a different game. This is Deinterlacing. It's a Japan-only on-rails shooter by Squaresoft. It's pretty fun. Very short, but pretty fun. But you can see the image is a mess. It kind of looks cool, but at the same time, yeah, it's not very good. Now, you may be thinking, hey, but what if I use Yadev with progressive video? That is possible, right? I mean, yes, it is, but it does have some disadvantages. First of all, it doubles the frame rate from 60 to 120, just a little bit excessive. And second thing, I will show it off here because this is a very... Well, first of all, interlace artifacting is still somewhat present. As you can see, these lines tend to double in places where they would be appearing next. And also, if I can get that to appear real quick. Now, I'm going to zoom in to get like a frame by frame. Okay. Yes, so as you can see, it doesn't really move smoothly. It basically skips every other frame, and it updates with video noise. And in some cases, I also notice that it essentially moves back and forth, like 1 frame forward, 2 frames backwards, 3 frames forward. You don't necessarily notice it in motion, but considering that you already lose at least lose half the intended frame rate, it's a bit of a waste. Now let's take a look at what we've actually done first, which was to convert it into Yadev, and take a look at this frame by frame. Hold on, let me just like catch up. As you can see, it updates every single frame. Interlace artifacting is present, but it's very, very minor by comparison. You don't have these ghost lines appearing every other frame, and instead you get smooth video that keeps going one direction, exactly as we want. Now, I also made a comparison with QTGMC, and while it does give correct image, I do notice that it adds a little bit excessive motion blur, and it smooths out the overall image too hard, especially in something with as much detail as internal section. You can see by comparison it is way more fuzzy, and also I think that the chroma channels also have work on a certain delay. Let me just take this. Yes. So let's just look for a good frame for reference. Yeah, like for example, let's take a look at this one. I'm going to use this frame for reference, and let's take a look at here. This looks so much cleaner by comparison. Now let's go back here, and let's go back here, and let's go back to this. Well, this one actually doesn't look as messy, but let's go all the way back to where we started. So you can see why you would want to use the interlacing. I mentioned some other games before. A friend helped me get some footage of Bloody Roar. And as you can see, this one also is an interlaced game. So just get some. Yeah, this is a good moment. And let's take a look at. Oh yeah, this one is particularly nasty when it comes to YADIF in progressive scan. As you can see, the frame rate is halved, and I noticed that in some frames it just straight up goes backwards and forwards. Can't quite find it right now, but just take my word for it, I guess. But yeah, I made let's make a comparison. This is the same frame in YADIF from interlaced video, same one from progressive. You can already see there is more artifacting in this specific frame compared to this one where you don't see any. And let's take a look at QTGMC, which actually adds quite a bit more motion blur. QTGMC does, however, have one advantage, and that is it doesn't really it does smooth out the video. It removes a lot of the aliasing. For example, at the start of the fight, let's take a look at this. You can see how the pixels shift around back and forth, which is probably how it looked like anyway, but some people may prefer it another way as well. So here it is. I just wanted to show off what you can achieve with various deinterlacing options, and how you can actually make emulator recorded interlaced videos watchable, or presentable. Actually pretty nice to look at, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. When it comes to the results with YADIF, it is a lot better than what I had expected. And you don't want to use YADIF for most of these, because the vast majority of the games that use interlaced scan on PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and the Nintendo 64 do actually run at 60 frames, mostly due to a hardware limitation, because they couldn't fit the entire image into frame buffer. So they basically just created half the image, pushed it on the screen, created the other half of the image, and that's how they achieved interlaced video and 60 frames. Like for example this one, which, yeah, I mean, it is actually pretty impressive for the PS1. But yeah, this is it for this video. I hope it is useful. If you want to know more about QTGMC, there's a very good tutorial that somebody has made before, and I can link it, which walks you through how to actually install it and how to actually use it. Oh yeah, one more very important thing. When it comes to the weaved footage, you want to make sure that you don't apply any kind of filters before you deinterlace it, because any change in sharpness can actually make it so that it won't be detected as interlaced video even after you turn it into interlaced video. So yeah, that's one last piece of advice, and thank you very much for watching, and bye.